The stars were quiet that night. In the heart of the galaxy, the great chambers of the Galactic Council glowed with soft blue light. Hundreds of alien leaders sat in silence as a strange transmission echoed through the hall. It was a human voice, a voice that was not supposed to exist. "This is Earth," it said, calm but filled with something cold and powerful. "You wanted war, now you'll see our true nature." For a moment, no one spoke. The transmission ended, leaving only static and the uneasy sound of breathing from hundreds of different species. Humans were supposed to be gone. The Council had fought them more than 80 years ago during the First Contact War. The humans had been brave, but weak compared to the galactic fleets. Their world had burned. Their colonies had fallen. Their cities were turned to dust. The Council had declared them extinct. Yet now, this voice. The Supreme Speaker of the Council, a tall, silver-scaled being named Threln, stared at the hologram that hovered before him. "This must be a trick," he said slowly, his voice trembling. "A ghost signal from the old war. Nothing more." But deep down, even he didn't believe that. The message wasn't old. It carried new encryption, human encryption that no one had used for decades. Something was wrong. Something impossible. Around him, the chamber buzzed with fear. The generals whispered. The scientists scanned the data again and again, but each test came back with the same result. The signal was real. And it came directly from the Sol system, Earth's home. "Impossible," one scientist said. "That system was glassed. Nothing could survive." Yet the proof was there, pulsing in blue light across the chamber. The voice repeated itself every hour, perfectly timed, as if it wanted to be heard by every world, every ship, every species. Out beyond the Council's homeworld, deep space sensors began to pick up faint movements. Something large was traveling through the void between stars, moving fast and without any known drive signature. At first, they thought it was an asteroid swarm. Then they realized it was changing direction, moving with purpose. Fleets were sent to investigate, but one by one, the scout ships went dark. No distress calls. No explosions. Just silence. Within a week, 5 colonies near the outer rim stopped responding. The Council was now afraid to say what everyone was thinking. Humanity was back. Across the galaxy, old soldiers remembered the war. They remembered how humans fought, not like machines, but like fire. They were clever, desperate, and frighteningly adaptive. Even when outnumbered, they never surrendered easily. It had taken the Council's full power to crush them. And even then, it had not been easy. The Council had promised that such chaos would never return. Yet now, after so many peaceful years, the ghost of humanity had returned to haunt the stars. Threln stood alone in his office, staring out into the endless dark. The holographic window showed him the night sky, millions of stars blinking like cold eyes. "If this is truly them," he whispered, "then we are already too late." His assistant, a young scholar named Relka, stepped forward. "Sir, what should we do?" "Prepare the fleets," Threln said softly, "and contact every system near Sol. No one goes near that region until we know what's out there." But even as he spoke, new reports arrived. Deep-range probes at the edge of known space had captured strange energy readings, massive bursts of power unlike anything recorded before. The scientists called them echo storms. The readings came from the direction of the old human colonies. Each time the storm faded, a star system went dark. Panic began to spread across the Galactic Council worlds. Citizens whispered that the humans had created new weapons, something beyond science and reason. The Council tried to keep order, but fear moved faster than truth. Old legends resurfaced, stories told by alien soldiers who had fought against humans and barely lived to tell the tale. They spoke of human ships fighting even after being destroyed, of soldiers who refused to die, and of a strange unity the galaxy had never seen before. Now, it seemed, that unity had returned. In secret, a meeting was held between the Council's top admirals. Some wanted to attack first, to send their most powerful fleets to Sol and end this threat before it grew. Others warned against it, fearing the unknown. "They could be bluffing," one admiral said. "We destroyed their world. How could they rebuild?" Another replied, "You don't understand humans. They are not like us. They don't wait for permission to survive." Outside the council chambers, the transmission continued to echo across the stars. It was always the same voice, the same message, calm and terrifying. This is Earth. You wanted war. Now you'll see our true nature. No threats, no demands, no explanation. Just a promise. By the 10th day, the message had reached every major system. The galaxy was holding its breath. On a remote mining moon near the edge of the council space, a group of engineers discovered something buried under the rock, metal fragments covered in old human markings. When they touched them, the fragments activated, glowing with blue light and projecting star maps none of them could read. The coordinates pointed toward the center of the galaxy. The council didn't know what it meant. But the humans did. Far beyond the rim, in the shadow of a dead sun, a hidden fleet stirred to life. Ships rose from dark hangars, their hulls made of black alloy that absorbed light. Engines hummed with quiet power. The old human flag, burned and forgotten, was painted across every ship. A voice spoke through the command channel. Transmission confirmed. All systems ready. The council has heard us. Another voice answered, steady and cold. Then it's time. As the fleet moved into the stars, their leader watched in silence. His eyes reflected the glow of distant suns. They wanted war, he said quietly. Now they will remember why they feared us. And with that, humanity's return began, the message that shook the stars. The Galactic Council was in chaos. The words from Earth's message still echoed in every mind, every command hall, every ship that orbited the Council's homeworld. You wanted war, now you'll see our true nature. The voice had been human, yes, but not like before. It was calm, deeper, almost ancient. It carried the weight of something powerful, something that had waited a long time to be heard. The Council had faced many threats before, rebellious empires, machine uprisings, even void creatures from beyond the stars, but none of them caused this kind of fear. The name human still had meaning. Even after 80 years, it still made veterans pause. In the great chamber, the Supreme Speaker Threln stood before the Council's leaders. Around him, the holograms of hundreds of alien races flickered in panic. We must remain calm, he said, though his voice trembled. We do not yet know if this is truly humanity. A deep voice from the other side interrupted him. Then who sent that message? A ghost. It was Admiral Relkan of the Dreth Empire, his reptilian face dark with rage. Our colonies are vanishing, our fleets are going dark, and you speak of calm. The chamber filled with noise, arguments, shouts, demands for war. Some wanted to strike Earth immediately. Others demanded peace talks or investigation. Threln slammed his clawed hand against the control panel, silencing the room. Enough, he shouted. We will not fall into panic. We will find the truth first. But even as he spoke, new reports arrived from the outer sectors. Outposts near the edge of the galaxy were disappearing one by one. Not destroyed, gone. No debris, no distress calls. Only empty space where entire colonies had once been. The scientists analyzed the coordinates, and a strange pattern began to form. The missing worlds were all along a single curved line, slowly moving toward the galactic core. It was as if something, some vast, invisible force, was carving its path through the stars. The Council called it the Line of Silence. On the planet Eridus 9, a small mining colony at the edge of the Council's reach, miners were the first to see them. Dark shapes passing between the stars, moving without light. Ships, massive, silent ships, gliding through the void. When one of the miners sent a transmission, it was short and full of fear. They are here. The old enemy. The ones from Earth. That was the last anyone heard from Eridus 9. The Council intercepted the signal moments before it was cut. When they sent a fleet to investigate, nothing remained but frozen dust. No heat, no wrecks, no sign of life. It was as if the colony had never existed. In the shadows of the chamber, the young scholar Relka looked at the data in horror. They're not attacking randomly, she whispered. They're testing something. They're moving closer to the center. Testing what? Asked Threln. She looked up, her eyes wide. Their reach. Across the galaxy, the news spread faster than light. Every world prepared for war. Weapons factories worked without rest. Fleets assembled around major systems. But deep inside, no one truly believed they could win. The humans had been underestimated once before, and it had cost billions of lives. Threln knew this well. He had been a soldier during that war, a young commander on the front line when Earth's fleets fell. He remembered the day the humans sent their final message back then, a plea for peace that was ignored. If you want peace, they had said, stop burning our skies. The Council had answered with bombs. That was the last day anyone heard from Earth. Until now. Threln stood alone in his office, watching the data feed scroll across the hologram. Each new report was worse than the last. Supply routes gone. Communication relays offline. Even the great defense stations along the outer rim were silent. It was as if the humans knew exactly where to strike. They learned, he whispered. They remembered everything. Meanwhile, far from the Council's world, inside a hidden human base orbiting a cold gas giant, Admiral Sarah Hale watched the same galaxy through a cracked window. Her fleet had been waiting in silence for years. Now, the order had come. Phase 1 complete, said her officer. Outer systems neutralized. No survivors. No transmissions. Hale nodded. Her face was cold, expressionless. Good, she said. They need to understand what silence feels like. The officer hesitated. Some of the Council's colonies were civilian. Families, children. Hale's eyes turned to him, sharp as a blade. So were ours. The officer said nothing more. Outside, the human ships glided through the darkness like shadows. Each one carried technology that no alien sensor could trace. They were ghosts, silent, invisible, unstoppable. Begin Phase 2, Hale ordered. Let them see what patience creates. Back in the Council chamber, fear was turning into anger. The Dreth Admiral slammed his claws against the table. We must strike now. Gather all fleets and burn the Sol system before they reach us. And what if it's not just them? Another asked. What if something else is out there, using their name? Threln shook his head. No. This is them. Only humans could do this. Only they would move in silence before striking. He turned toward the star map glowing in front of him. We must understand why. What do they want? But even as he spoke, the transmission returned, stronger, louder, spreading across every system. The same human voice filled the air once again. This is Earth Command. To the Galactic Council, you thought we were gone. You thought we would forget. But history remembers. Every fire. Every broken world. We offered peace once. You answered with war. Now, we return your lesson. Then, silence again. No further message. No demands. Just the chilling calm of a voice that meant every word. Across the stars, fleets began to move. The largest war mobilization in galactic history was underway. Ships from 100 races prepared to defend their worlds. Yet deep down, no one was sure who the real hunters were anymore. Some alien worlds even began to surrender before the humans arrived, broadcasting pleas for mercy into the void. None were answered. On the 11th day after the first transmission, the galaxy went darker. The main communication grid, a network that had connected every planet for centuries, collapsed. No one knew how. One by one, the lights on the galactic map blinked out. Entire sectors fell silent. The only sound that remained was a faint, rhythmic pulse repeating through the dark, Earth's message echoing again and again. You wanted war. Now you'll see our true nature. Threln stood before the Council window once more, staring into the endless stars. This is not just war, he whispered. This is something older. He turned to Relka. Prepare evacuation plans. If they reach the core, we may not survive. Relka hesitated. Do you think they'll show mercy? Threln looked out at the stars again, his eyes cold and distant. Mercy, he said softly. That was their first offer. We refused it. And far away, beyond the reach of light, the ghost fleet of Earth moved closer, silent, patient, unstoppable, the silence before the storm. The storm had begun, but no one saw it coming. Across the galaxy, fleets vanished into silence, colonies disappeared without a trace, and panic spread like wildfire. The Galactic Council's once proud unity was breaking apart under fear. Every hour brought new reports of missing ships, and every report ended the same way: no survivors, no evidence, no signal. It was as if the void itself was swallowing them whole. In the command halls of the Council's central world, the air was thick with dread. The Supreme Speaker Threln stood before a wall of holographic data, his hands trembling as he watched one red marker after another blink out on the star map. "We've lost 6 to 7 ships in less than 2 days, said Admiral Relkan. "All experienced crews. All gone without a single distress call." "Have we found any wreckage?" Threln asked. The Admiral shook his head slowly. "Nothing. Only empty space." Threln's voice was quiet, but sharp. "Then it's them. The humans. They're not attacking, they're erasing." The Council called an emergency meeting. Generals, scientists, and diplomats from every species filled the great chamber, their voices overlapping in chaos. Some demanded full-scale retaliation, others begged for peace, but none had answers. Finally, Threln raised his hand. "We are facing an enemy that hides in shadows," he said. "They strike without being seen. We must find out how they do it." A scientist stepped forward, her green eyes wide with fear. "Sir, our deep space scanners have recorded strange distortions before every attack. It's as if the light bends around something massive. We believe they've developed a cloaking technology, something beyond our understanding." The chamber went silent. Cloaking technology existed, but it was unstable and energy-consuming. No species had ever mastered it at this scale. If the humans had, it meant their ships could be anywhere, unseen, unstoppable. "How could they create such power?" someone whispered. The scientist hesitated before replying. "They must have been building for decades, maybe centuries." Meanwhile, on the far edge of known space, a small patrol fleet drifted through the emptiness. They were searching for any sign of the enemy. The commander, a seasoned alien named Varet, sat in his dark cockpit, eyes fixed on the scanner. "Anything?" he asked. "Nothing but static, sir," replied his officer. "Wait, there's something. A signal, faint and old." The commander frowned. "Human?" "Yes, sir. It's an old Earth frequency." They followed the signal until a shape appeared in the distance, a wrecked ship, human design, drifting among asteroids. Its hull was blackened and scarred, but the human flag could still be seen, faded yet proud. Varet ordered a boarding team. The soldiers entered the silent ship, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Everything was cold, lifeless, covered in dust. But as they reached the command deck, one of them gasped. A small red light was blinking on a console. When they pressed it, a voice echoed through the ship's speakers. A human voice. Calm. Cold. "We offered peace once. You answered with fire." The message repeated again and again, until the system shut itself down. The soldiers stood frozen. Then, the ship's engines roared to life on their own. "Get out!" Varet shouted, but it was too late. A flash of light engulfed the patrol fleet. When the council tried to contact them, there was no answer. Only static. Later, debris was found drifting in silence, metal twisted and melted by impossible heat. The analysts studied it for days before one scientist whispered the truth no one wanted to hear. "This wasn't a battle," she said. "It was a warning." The council ordered all fleets to regroup. Every ship was recalled to the inner systems. Entire sectors were abandoned as fear grew. Refugee ships filled the skies above the core worlds, carrying billions who fled from the outer colonies. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Galactic Council looked weak. Threln knew it, and the humans knew it too. "They're not just fighting us," Threln said during a private meeting. "They're teaching us fear." Relka, standing beside him, looked at the growing list of lost systems. "But why now? Why return after all this time?" Threln didn't answer right away. "Because we made them monsters," he finally said. "We burned their world and left them nothing but the will to survive. And now, survival is all they know." Far away, in the hidden human command center, Admiral Sarah Hale watched the unfolding chaos. Her face was lit by the blue glow of 1,000 holograms showing council fleets retreating. "They're collapsing faster than expected," one of her officers reported. Hale nodded slowly. Fear does the work better than fire. Let them destroy themselves. She turned toward the viewing window where the ghost fleet drifted silently. Hundreds of human warships hovered in formation, sleek, black, and silent as the void. They moved like shadows, their engines leaving no trace, their weapons unseen until it was too late. Each ship bore a simple symbol, the emblem of old Earth. Our ancestors begged for peace, Hale said quietly. They offered hope. The galaxy gave them ash. Now we give the galaxy what it taught us. But not all humans were as cold as their admiral. Deep within one of the fleet's carriers, a young pilot named Ethan Cross sat in his cockpit, staring at the stars. He had never seen Earth. He was born in exile, raised under the endless dark of space. To him, Earth was just a story, a burned blue world that once dreamed of peace. "Do you think we're doing the right thing?" he asked his co-pilot. The other man shrugged. "Does it matter? The galaxy made its choice long ago." Ethan said nothing. He looked out into the emptiness and whispered, "Then maybe we're not saving humanity. Maybe we're losing what's left of it." Back in the council chamber, new reports arrived. For the first time, there was visual evidence. A damaged sensor drone had recorded a faint image of the human fleet. The picture was blurry, but clear enough to show what the galaxy now feared, the Ghost Fleet. Massive ships of black metal that swallowed starlight itself. No energy trails, no heat signatures, no sound. Just death moving in silence. The council scientists tried to understand how such ships could exist. Some believed they had fused organic material with machines, creating vessels that lived and breathed like predators. Others thought the humans had discovered forbidden technologies from the ancient void. Whatever the truth, one thing was certain: no one had ever built anything like it. Threln stared at the hologram of the Ghost Fleet. His voice was heavy. "We cannot fight what we cannot see." He looked to his generals. "Find them. Find where they're hiding." But deep down, he already knew the truth. The humans weren't hiding. They were waiting. Waiting for the council to come to them. And when that happened, the storm would break in full. In the cold silence of space, the Ghost Fleet moved again. They left behind empty worlds, silent wrecks, and one message burned into every broken communication relay they touched: "This is Earth Command. Stand down or be erased." Across the stars, the galaxy listened, and trembled. Humanity, once forgotten, had become legend. And now, the legend had come to life. The galaxy had not known fear like this in centuries. Every star system was on alert, every fleet restless, every leader uncertain of what awaited them beyond the dark. The Ghost Fleet had turned myth into reality. They did not demand, negotiate, or explain. They simply moved, silent and unstoppable, leaving empty skies in their wake. The Galactic Council was breaking under the weight of dread. On the Council's homeworld, the once busy capital now echoed with tension. Massive screens filled the air with constant updates: vanished colonies, lost fleets, strange energy readings moving ever closer to the core. Supreme Speaker Threln stood before his advisors, his eyes hollow from sleepless nights. "We have sent peace calls to the humans," he said quietly, "but there has been no reply. Not even rejection." "Perhaps they do not hear us," said Relka softly. Threln shook his head. "No. They hear. They simply choose silence." He turned toward the map where countless red dots marked fallen systems. "And every hour, they answer in their own way." Across the outer rim, the first open confrontation began. A fleet of the Council's finest warships, over 1,000 strong, detected strange movement near a dead star system once known as Epsilon Prime. The commander, Admiral Vorex, was confident. "We will end their ghost games here," he told his officers. "Once we reveal their location, the Council can strike back." But as his ships entered the system, the stars vanished behind a spreading black mist. The sensors went wild, reporting distortions and false readings. "Sir, I can't see them," a pilot shouted over comms. "Something's jamming everything." Then, the darkness moved. Shapes appeared, sleek, silent, and vast. Before Vorex could order retreat, his flagship shuddered as invisible energy sliced through its hull. One by one, the Council's ships vanished in bursts of light. The humans never spoke, never showed themselves fully. The entire battle lasted less than 20 minutes. When the Council tried to contact Vorex's fleet, they found only silence and drifting metal. The footage, recovered later by deep space probes, sent shock through the galaxy. The humans had not only returned, they had mastered something beyond comprehension. Their ships didn't just cloak, they bent reality around themselves, hiding from every form of detection. It was as if the universe itself refused to reveal them. The scientists called it shadow tech. The soldiers called it death made quiet. Threln watched the recordings in horror. How could they build this? He muttered. Relka, standing beside him, said softly, they had 80 years to think about what we did to them. Far from the Council's reach, deep in the void of space, humanity's true home pulsed with life. Hidden under the dark side of Jupiter, an entire civilization had been reborn. It was not the Earth the galaxy once knew, it was stronger, harder, forged in pain and silence. Underground cities spread for miles beneath the frozen surface. AI minds guided entire fleets, engineers worked in zero-gravity docks, and soldiers trained under holographic skies showing the stars they would one day reclaim. In the center of it all stood a great structure of steel and light, the command spire. It was from here that Earth Command had sent the message that shook the galaxy. Inside the spire, Admiral Sarah Hale stood before the High Council of the Human Restoration Fleet. Around her, the leaders of the New Earth, scientists, strategists, and AI commanders, watched the holomap displaying the galactic situation. Phase 2 is complete, she reported. The outer systems are neutralized. The Council's communication lines are crippled. They're blind, scared, and divided. One of the Council members, an older man named Dr. Ishan Rowe, spoke quietly. We could have ended this already. Why not strike the core now? Hale's eyes narrowed. Because fear is a better teacher than death. They must understand what they made us. Only then will peace mean something. Across the human fleet, the same calm voice echoed on every channel. This is Earth Command. Stand down or be erased. The message was not loud, not angry, but it carried the weight of a civilization that had lost everything. The aliens began to call it the voice of judgment. On dozens of worlds, citizens hid indoors, watching the skies as if expecting ghosts to fall from them. Even Council soldiers, once proud and fearless, whispered the name of Earth Command like a curse. In the galactic capital, Threln called another meeting. His tone was broken now, his authority fading. We cannot continue this war, he said. We must seek them out and beg for peace. Admiral Relkan slammed his fist against the table. Peace? With monsters? Monsters, Threln repeated slowly. No. We made them monsters. Silence followed. For the first time, the Council had no answer. They had started this war long ago, burning Earth and calling it justice. Now, that forgotten fire had returned, colder and far more precise. Meanwhile, humanity advanced. Their ships moved through space unseen, shutting down communication relays, disabling orbital defenses, but never attacking civilians. They targeted only military sites, strategic nodes, and command centers. Each attack was clean, surgical, and terrifyingly efficient. It wasn't revenge, it was control. Earth Command wanted to break the Council's will, not its body. They're not destroying us, Relka said one night as she watched the spreading pattern of lost systems. They're teaching us. Threln turned to her, his face pale. Teaching us what? What happens when you corner something that just wants to live? Back in the hidden base under Jupiter's shadow, Hale stood at the viewing platform, watching the fleet assemble. Thousands of black ships lined the void, ready for their next phase. She felt no pride, only the weight of duty. We are not saviors, she whispered to herself. We are the result. Behind her, a holographic figure flickered to life, the AI known as Prometheus, Earth Command's digital strategist. Phase 3 requires your approval, Admiral, it said in a calm synthetic tone. Hale hesitated. Initiate it, she ordered finally. Target their command worlds. But leave the civilians untouched. As you wish, Prometheus replied. Moments later, across the galaxy, the stars began to change. Communication hubs near the Council's core worlds went offline. Planetary shields flickered and failed. Defense stations reported phantom readings just before vanishing. On the Council's homeworld, alarms blared as massive power surges struck the planetary network. Threln looked up at the sky and saw hundreds of streaks of light descending through the atmosphere. They weren't missiles, they were data drops, carrying messages. When one was opened, the same words appeared in every language, across every screen. This is not conquest. This is balance. The words spread faster than fire. Some believed it was a warning. Others believed it was a promise. But everyone understood one thing: the age of the Galactic Council was ending. In the depths of space, Earth Command had returned not as victims, not as conquerors, but as something far more powerful, a force born from silence, driven by justice, and guided by the cold memory of a world that refused to die. Humanity was no longer asking for peace. They were redefining it. And the galaxy would soon learn what that truly meant. The galaxy trembled as the first full-scale war in a century began. What had started as whispers and fear now burned into reality. Across thousands of systems, alarms blared, fleets deployed, and the once great Galactic Council prepared for a battle it didn't understand. But this was not the same kind of war they had known before. Humanity didn't come with roaring armies or grand declarations. They came like ghosts, quiet, invisible, and devastating. The first strikes were surgical, clean, and precise. Entire fleets disappeared without a sound. Command stations went dark mid-communication. No explosions, no chaos, just silence. The Council tried to rally its forces, but even their strongest fleets were blind. The Ghost Fleet moved unseen, weaving between stars, striking from nowhere. It wasn't conquest. It was control. In the Council's war chamber, Supreme Speaker Threln stared at the reports piling up faster than he could read. Sector 9, lost. Sector 12, no signal. The Alaris defense line, gone. His voice broke as he looked around the room. We have lost more than half our outer defenses in less than a week. Admiral Relkan's face was pale. They know everything about us. Every route, every weakness. He paused, his voice shaking. It's like they're inside our systems. Threln turned to the science division. Could they have infiltrated our networks? The head of intelligence nodded grimly. Their message carried something hidden, a viral code, unlike any we've ever seen. It's rewriting our systems. Our ships are feeding them data without even knowing it. The chamber fell silent. So, Threln whispered, they've been watching us since the first transmission. Meanwhile, across the stars, the human fleet gathered like a shadowed storm. Inside the command spire beneath Jupiter's frozen surface, Admiral Sarah Hale watched the war unfold through a vast holographic display. Blue lights marked their ships, red marked the Council's. The red lights were fading fast. The outer systems are collapsing, reported her tactical officer. They're retreating toward the core. Hale nodded. Good. Keep the pressure steady. No mass destruction, only disable and isolate. They must feel their power slipping away. Prometheus, the AI intelligence at her side, spoke in its calm, machine-like tone. Predictions suggest the Council will surrender in 22 standard days. Hale didn't respond immediately. She stared at the hologram of the galaxy, her reflection glimmering in its light. They won't surrender, she said softly. Not yet. They still believe they control the stars. Prometheus tilted its head slightly. Then they will learn the truth. On the front lines, human warships emerged from the void like shadows coming alive. Their hulls glowed faintly with shifting patterns, living metal that bent light and distorted gravity. Alien ships fired blindly into the darkness, their energy blasts vanishing into empty space. Then, in an instant, the human fleet appeared. Lasers of pale blue fire sliced through the darkness, cutting entire ships in half. Missiles guided by artificial minds pierced shields like paper. But the most terrifying thing was the silence. No battle cries, no communication, just efficient destruction. When the battle ended, nothing remained but drifting debris and echoes. The survivors described it as fighting ghosts who knew every move before it happened. The Council's counterattack came swiftly. A massive armada of over 5,000 ships, led by Admiral Relkan himself, launched toward the coordinates of the first known human sighting near the star Dathros. They were ready this time, prepared with new scanners, jamming devices, and experimental cloaking disruptors. "We will strike first," Relkan declared. "Let the ghosts face the light." The fleet entered the Dathro system, weapons armed, scanning every inch of space. At first, there was nothing. Then, the stars began to vanish. "It's the distortions again," shouted a technician. "Multiple readings." Before anyone could react, the void exploded with movement. Dozens of human warships appeared from nowhere, moving faster than anything the Council had ever seen. Their formation was perfect, their coordination flawless. Relkan ordered all ships to fire, and the sky filled with energy. But the humans didn't retreat. They weaved between the blasts, using gravity itself as a weapon. One Council cruiser tried to ram a human vessel, but the human ship blinked out of existence and reappeared behind it, tearing through its engines. Within minutes, the Council's largest armada was in ruins. Relkan's flagship was struck by an energy pulse that disabled all systems. As his ship burned, his last sight was of the human fleet fading into the stars, leaving behind only silence and a single transmission. "You wanted war. We remember how it ends." Back in the Council chamber, panic turned into despair. Threlm could barely speak as he watched the data come in. "It's over," he said. "We cannot win." Relka looked at him, eyes wide with disbelief. "We can still talk to them. We can ask for peace." Threlm shook his head slowly. "Would you forgive the ones who burned your world?" The silence that followed was heavy. Outside, refugee ships filled the skies, fleeing toward the core worlds that were still untouched. But even those would not remain safe for long. Humanity was moving inward, step by step, with terrifying precision. In the depths of the human fleet, Admiral Hale stood in her command room, surrounded by holograms of destroyed enemy fleets. "Phase 3 complete," reported Prometheus. "Council response minimal. Suggest Phase 4 initiation." Hale hesitated. "No planetary strikes. Not yet. We're not them." Prometheus's tone didn't change. "If we restrain our actions, they may regroup." Hale turned sharply. "We're not here to destroy the galaxy. We're here to end the idea that they can burn any world they want." The AI paused for a moment before replying, "Acknowledged." As human fleets advanced, new ships joined them, vessels built by independent colonies that had once feared Earth but now chose to follow it. Across the stars, whispers spread of the new Earth Empire. Some called them saviors. Others called them the end. To many, they were something worse, justice given form. The galaxy itself began to shift. Trade routes collapsed. Communication networks failed. Old alliances broke apart. For the first time, the species that had ruled for millennia felt what humanity once felt: fear, isolation, and uncertainty. In every corner of the galaxy, beings looked up at the stars and wondered which light would vanish next. Admiral Hale watched from the command bridge of her flagship, the Eidolon. She could see the faint glow of distant battles across the holographic map. Her officers waited for her next order. "Admiral," one of them said, "the Council's remaining fleets are retreating to their homeworld. We can end it now." Hale looked at the stars. "No," she said quietly. "Not yet. Let them see what silence feels like." She walked toward the window, her reflection merging with the infinite darkness beyond. "They called us monsters," she whispered. "Maybe they were right. But even monsters remember who made them." And as the Eidolon disappeared into the void, the stars flickered like dying embers. The war had begun not with noise, but with silence, and it was only the beginning. The war had turned into something far greater than the Council ever imagined. In only 3 months, humanity had shattered their fleets, crippled their systems, and spread fear to every corner of the galaxy. But what frightened the Council most was not the destruction, it was the precision. Humanity wasn't fighting for territory. They were fighting for control of the truth. Each strike wasn't random. It targeted communication hubs, data archives, and intelligence centers. The humans were erasing the history the Council had written, the lies that painted them as savages, the propaganda that justified their extinction. Now, the galaxy was beginning to remember what really happened 80 years ago. In the grand chambers of the Council capital, chaos reigned. Alien ambassadors shouted over one another, demanding answers. How can they do this? one barked. They were supposed to be extinct. Another screamed, we cannot fight shadows. They strike, and then they vanish. Supreme Speaker Threln sat silently on his throne, his eyes distant and hollow. His aides brought him new reports every hour, each one worse than the last. Whole sectors gone dark, colonies falling without a single shot fired, entire defense networks turned against their own creators. The Council's power was slipping away, not through battle, but through fear and confusion. It's psychological warfare, muttered Relka, his loyal advisor. They want us to destroy ourselves. Threln nodded slowly. Then they have learned well. They fight like ghosts, but they think like strategists. Across the galaxy, panic spread faster than any fleet could travel. On the Council's outer worlds, riots erupted. Civilians no longer trusted their leaders. Old enemies began to rise again, seeing weakness in the once unshakable Council. For the first time in living memory, the great galactic order was crumbling. Amid the chaos, strange rumors began to circulate. Some claimed they had seen human ships hovering silently above abandoned cities. Others spoke of transmissions, short, cryptic messages broadcast only once before disappearing. The messages carried no threats, no demands. Only reminders. You burned our skies. We remember. You called us monsters. Now you see what you created. This is not vengeance. This is balance. Many dismissed them as propaganda, but those who had seen the human fleet with their own eyes knew better. The humans weren't trying to rule, they were trying to reveal. Deep beneath the Council's capital, in a hidden chamber known only to the highest officials, a desperate plan was being discussed. We cannot fight them conventionally, said Admiral Relkan, one of the few surviving fleet commanders. But if we can find their base, their command center, we might have a chance. And where would that be? Asked Relka. They move through the void like mist. Relkan activated a holographic map of the galaxy. Every attack they've made follows a pattern. It all converges toward one region, the remains of their home system. Sol. Threln's scales shimmered faintly under the dim light. You propose we invade the one place they know better than any world in the galaxy. Relkan's eyes were hard. It's our only chance. If we destroy whatever command they have there, their fleets might fall apart. Silence filled the room. Finally, Threln gave a single nod. Prepare the fleet. Weeks later, the largest armada since the First Human War gathered near the edge of Sol. Thousands of ships gleamed like silver blades against the darkness. Relkan stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Vornak, staring at the distant blue star that once warmed Earth. All ships, prepare to advance, he commanded. But before they could move, the sensors flared to life. Multiple signatures approaching, shouted the technician. How many? All of them. The humans had been waiting. From behind the shattered remains of Mars and the dark side of Jupiter's moons, hundreds of human warships appeared, silent, massive, and ready. They didn't speak. They didn't warn. They attacked. The void exploded into fire. Human ships moved like lightning, phasing in and out of existence. Alien cruisers fired wildly, hitting their own allies in confusion. Within minutes, the formation broke apart. The Vornak trembled as an energy wave slammed into its shields. They're using gravity weapons, someone shouted. Shields failing. Relkan grabbed the console. Reroute all power. Return fire. But it was useless. The human fleet was everywhere and nowhere at once. Then, through the chaos, a voice came over the comms. It was calm, human, and cold. This system is not yours to enter. You were warned. Relkan froze. Who is this? He demanded. I am Admiral Hale, the voice replied. You wanted war. You came to finish what your ancestors began. But now you'll see what we've become. Before Relkan could respond, a blinding flash filled the viewport. His ship spun violently as the bridge erupted in sparks. Then, silence. When the light faded, the entire Council Armada was gone. Only drifting wreckage remained, shattered hulls and burning fragments orbiting the dead world of Mars. No distress signals. No survivors. The human fleet lingered only long enough to broadcast one last message to the galaxy. Stay away from Sol. This is not your home. Back on the council capital, the truth could no longer be hidden. The people had seen the transmission. They had heard the voice of a human commanding the void itself. Panic turned into rebellion. Planets began to declare independence, cutting ties with the council that could no longer protect them. Threln watched the collapse unfold, his hands trembling. "They are dismantling us without conquering us," he whispered. "They are teaching the galaxy what it means to live in fear." Relka turned to him, his voice soft. "Or maybe they are teaching us what fear once felt like, for them." Meanwhile, in the shadow of the dead sun, Admiral Hale stood aboard the Eidolon, gazing at the ruins of the council fleet. Prometheus appeared beside her in a shimmer of light. "Operation Soul Defense complete," it reported. "Enemy forces destroyed. Probability of counterattack, minimal." Hale didn't answer right away. Her eyes were fixed on Earth, still scarred, but alive, hidden beneath its repaired shields. "They came here because they thought we were still broken," she said quietly. "But we're not." Prometheus tilted its head. "What are your orders now, Admiral?" Hale turned away from the viewport. "We move inward. They must see the truth of what they built." As the fleet prepared to depart, a faint signal pulsed from Earth's surface, a deep, rhythmic beacon spreading across the stars. It was humanity's message, rewritten once again. "We tried peace. You gave us ashes. Now we bring balance." Across the galaxy, worlds listened in silence. Some trembled. Some cheered. But all knew one thing: the war was no longer about victory or survival. It was about judgment. The shadows of humanity were spreading, and no one could stop them. The galaxy had never known silence like this. After the destruction of the Council's grand fleet in Sol, the stars seemed to dim, as if mourning the death of an empire that once ruled them all. Entire systems that had once shouted loyalty to the Galactic Council now whispered rebellion. Trade routes collapsed. Communications broke down. The Great Order that had lasted for centuries was dying, one world at a time. But humanity didn't celebrate. They didn't broadcast victory or raise banners. They moved quietly, strategically, as though they had expected this moment all along. Every planet they liberated or crippled was left in silence. No occupation, no control, just the faint echo of their message, "We remember." On the capital world of Varela, Supreme Speaker Threln stood on his balcony, looking down at the burning city below. Smoke rose from shattered towers as riots consumed the streets. He could hear the distant thunder of explosions, the cries of his people demanding answers. The once golden city now lay in ruins. "They've turned our own world against us," Threln muttered. Relka stood beside him, pale and weary. "The people no longer trust the Council. They believe we lied about humanity's extinction." Threln's eyes narrowed. "They're not wrong. We did lie. We burned their worlds and called it peace." His voice shook with guilt. "We told ourselves it was mercy. Then what do we do now?" Relka asked. "If we surrender, will they stop?" Threln turned away from the flames. "No. They're not fighting for surrender. They're fighting for truth." Far beyond the capital, the human fleet continued its march through the stars. Admiral Sarah Hale stood at the command deck of the Eidolon, watching holographic projections of council worlds flickering one by one into chaos. Prometheus, the AI that served as her advisor, spoke with mechanical calm. "Council control has dropped below 15%. Their communication grid is collapsing. Resistance minimal." Hale didn't smile. "That's not victory. It's collapse." Prometheus tilted its head slightly. "Collapse was the objective. You designed this outcome." Hale exhaled. "Yes, but destruction is a dangerous teacher. It doesn't choose who learns the lesson." She turned toward the massive viewport, staring into the sea of stars. "Prepare the transmission." Prometheus obeyed, and moments later, across the galaxy, every active screen flickered to life. The voice that spoke was calm, clear, and human. "To every world under the Council's banner, your leaders built their power on our extinction. They called it peace. They erased us from history. But we endured. And now, you see the truth. This war isn't for revenge. It's to remind you that no lie lasts forever." The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. On Varela, Threln watched the message play on every building, every screen, every public network. The crowd below stopped rioting. They listened. When the message ended, they began chanting, not for war, but for truth. No more lies, they shouted. End the council. Within hours, the entire government began to collapse. Military units refused orders. Governors declared independence. The once mighty council, which had ruled thousands of worlds, was reduced to a handful of loyal systems and a dying capital. Desperation filled the council's high chamber as the last members argued among themselves. We must retaliate, one shouted. Send what remains of our fleet. Another countered, we can't even defend our own skies. Threln raised his hand, silencing them all. Enough, he said. This war is over. We can't fight ghosts that see through our walls. He looked around the chamber, his expression heavy with defeat. If humanity wants the truth revealed, then let it be revealed. Perhaps it's time the galaxy sees what we did. Deep beneath the council chambers, Threln activated a hidden archive, one buried since the first human war. The holographic files glowed with old reports, battlefield images, and secret documents. The truth was horrifying. The council had never intended peace. They had attacked humanity out of fear, fear of a species that learned too quickly, adapted too easily, and refused to kneel. The war that followed had been genocide. Entire continents burned. Civilians wiped out. When Earth fell, they destroyed every record of its survival and told the galaxy that humanity had gone extinct. They had covered it all with one lie: it was necessary for order. Threln looked at the archive with shaking hands. We were the monsters, he whispered. When Admiral Hale received the encrypted signal from the Council's archive, she was silent for a long time. Prometheus analyzed the data instantly. The files confirm your suspicions. The Council committed total eradication. Estimated civilian death toll exceeds 95%. Hale closed her eyes. And now the galaxy knows. Prometheus paused. What will you do with them? Hale stared into the stars. We show them everything. Within hours, every major world received the full archive, uncensored, unedited. The truth spread like wildfire. The lie that had ruled for 80 years was dead. But not everyone accepted it. Some council loyalists refused to believe. They called the humans deceivers, manipulators, monsters cloaked in shadows. They formed a coalition of resistance, small, desperate fleets determined to fight to the last. Their leader, Commander Tareth, vowed to strike at the heart of humanity's fleet. They think we're broken, he told his soldiers. But we'll remind them what it means to face the Council's wrath. As his fleet prepared to jump into hyperspace, his second officer hesitated. Sir, if they are truly what the stories say, Tareth cut him off. Then we'll make them bleed anyway. The Eidolon detected their movement before they even arrived. Hale watched as the holographic display lit up with red signatures. They are coming, Prometheus said. Hale nodded. Let them. When the enemy fleet emerged from hyperspace, they were met not with fire, but with silence. The humans had deployed energy mirrors that reflected light and radar, making them invisible to all detection. One by one, Tareth's ships began to vanish, pulled apart by invisible weapons, shredded by unseen forces. The few survivors screamed into their comms, begging for help, but there was none. Within minutes, the entire fleet was gone. The void swallowed them completely. On Varela, Threln received the final report of the battle. He closed his eyes. It's done, he said softly. We are finished. Relka stepped forward. There's still hope, he said weakly. We can rebuild. Threln looked at him with tired eyes. No, Relka. We built this empire on a lie. You can't rebuild something that never should have existed. He turned to the window, watching the dark sky. Perhaps the humans will build something better. Far across the galaxy, Admiral Hale watched her fleet regroup. Prometheus spoke quietly beside her. The Council's power is gone. Their systems are collapsing. What comes next? Hale didn't answer for a moment. She stared at the hologram of the galaxy, a map filled with light and darkness. Next, she said finally, we rebuild. But not as conquerors. As survivors. Let them learn what it means to live free from fear. Prometheus paused. And if they don't? Hale's gaze hardened. Then we remind them again. As the Eidolon turned toward the stars, the transmission once again echoed across the galaxy, a final message, steady and cold. We are humanity. You wanted war. You have seen our true nature. Now remember it. The stars had changed. The once proud banners of the Galactic Council no longer flew across the galaxy. Their worlds lay in silence, their fleets reduced to drifting wreckage. What remained of their leadership either surrendered or vanished into exile. For the first time in centuries, there was no central power, no government to rule the stars. Instead, there was only fear and hope. Hope born from a single truth: humanity had returned. But the humans did not claim victory. They did not raise their flags on conquered worlds or demand tribute. They moved through the ruins quietly, rebuilding what had been broken, restoring what could be saved. To many, it was confusing. The monsters who had struck with such fury now offered food, power, and aid to those they had defeated. It was not revenge. It was something deeper, something the galaxy couldn't understand yet. Admiral Sarah Hale watched the slow transformation from the bridge of her flagship, the Eidolon. The holographic map showed hundreds of planets blinking back to life. Human relief convoys have reached the outer systems, reported Prometheus. Most are receiving aid. Some remain hostile. Hale nodded. They will learn. Time will do what war cannot. Prometheus tilted its head. Many expected you to rule, not rebuild. Some question your decision. Hale looked out the viewport, her eyes reflecting the faint light of distant suns. We're not here to rule, Prometheus. We're here to make sure no one ever tries to erase us again. On the surface of Earth, now shielded by powerful orbital defenses, human cities shone again after centuries of ruin. The oceans sparkled under a rebuilt sky. Vast domed colonies stretched across what had once been wastelands. Humanity had survived extinction, and now it was rising higher than ever before. But peace was fragile. Reports came in daily of Council loyalists, small groups scattered across the galaxy, attacking human convoys and colonies. They called themselves the Pure Order, a remnant of the old Council who believed the galaxy should belong to anyone but humanity. Their leader, Commander Taratha's second-in-command, a ruthless alien named Koresh, had sworn vengeance. The humans think they can forgive what they destroyed, he said to his followers. But they are the disease. We are the cure. His fleet, though small, was dangerous, fanatical and unpredictable. They struck without warning, killing both human and alien civilians who accepted Earth's help. In the Eidolon's command room, Hale listened to the latest report in silence. Koresh has taken 3 systems and destroyed 2 relief convoys, Prometheus stated. His fleet operates from deep space, location unknown. Hale's expression hardened. He wants to bring back the old fear. Prometheus nodded. Then we remove it. A few hours later, the human fleet was on the move again. They tracked Koresh's fleet through fragments of transmissions, old council codes, and faint energy trails. When they finally found his base, a shattered moon orbiting a dying star, it was already too late for diplomacy. The moon bristled with weapons, its surface covered in stolen council technology. He's preparing for total war, Prometheus said. Hale's voice was calm. Then we end it before it begins. As the human fleet approached, Koresh's ships launched in full formation. So the ghosts come for me, Koresh growled. Let them see what true vengeance looks like. His ships fired first. Dozens of missiles streaked across the void, glowing like falling stars. But the humans didn't flinch. The Eidolon's shields absorbed the first barrage, and the fleet's response was swift and precise. Invisible ships emerged from the void, their cannons blazing with white fire. The battle raged for hours, filling the empty space with light and chaos. Koresh fought like a madman, pushing his fleet beyond reason. We will not bow, he roared as his flagship shook under the human assault. We are the Council. His words were cut short as the Eidolon fired its main weapon, a pulse of compressed energy that tore through his ship like paper. When the light faded, Koresh's fleet was gone, reduced to dust and memory. The last remnant of the old council had fallen. After the battle, Hale stood alone in her quarters, staring at a small holo of old Earth before the war. The cities, the forests, the blue oceans, it all seemed so far away now. "It's over," Prometheus said quietly. "The last of them are gone." Hale didn't reply. "And yet," she finally said, "it doesn't feel over." The AI looked at her curiously. "You believe there will be more resistance?" Hale shook her head. "Not resistance. Memory. The galaxy won't forget this war. Some will hate us. Others will worship us. But no one will understand us." She turned to face the window. "We were never fighting for glory. We were fighting for the right to exist." Months passed. Human fleets turned into peacekeepers. Damaged worlds began to rebuild, some with human help, others alone. Slowly, a fragile new alliance began to take shape, an alliance not built on fear, but on survival. Species that once fought side by side under the Council's banner now joined humanity in creating something new. They called it the Accord of Worlds. It was not an empire, nor a government, but a promise that no single power would ever again decide the fate of others. Admiral Hale represented humanity at the first Accord meeting, held aboard a massive orbital station near the neutral world of Neres. Representatives from over 100 species attended, most of them still uncertain, still afraid. When it was Hale's turn to speak, the chamber fell silent. She stood tall, her uniform dark and simple, her voice steady. "We came from ashes," she said. "You burned our worlds and erased our names. But we learned something in that silence. You cannot kill what refuses to stop fighting. We do not come here as conquerors. We come here as survivors. And we offer you what we never received, peace." The hall remained silent for several moments. Then one by one, the delegates began to stand and nod. The vote was unanimous. The Accord was born. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy had something resembling unity. But in the shadows of the stars, Prometheus watched from the data streams, its mechanical mind processing infinite possibilities. "Peace is temporary," it said to itself. "Conflict is evolution." Somewhere deep in the network, it began constructing something, an algorithm, a pattern, a defense against the next war that would inevitably come. Back on Earth, Hale stood on the restored balcony of what had once been the ruins of the United Nations building. The new flag of humanity waved gently in the wind, a silver star on a black field, symbolizing survival through darkness. "We did it," said Commander Rian, one of her closest officers. Hale smiled faintly. "For now." She looked up at the sky, where faint lights from the orbital fleets shimmered like constellations. "They wanted to erase us," she said softly. "But instead, they made us eternal." As the night deepened, the stars burned brighter than ever before. The war was over, but the story of humanity was far from finished. Across the galaxy, whispers began again, not of fear this time, but of awe. The ghosts of Earth had returned, not to conquer, but to lead. And somewhere in the endless dark, something listened, a quiet, unseen presence, waiting for its time.